Okay, everybody, this is going to be our final video of this series. So we looked at drawing expressions. We looked at basic ways of drawing the body. Now we're going to actually combine those two concepts. We're going to combine those two concepts because although the face does express a lot of emotion, so does the body. And so we have to know how the body expresses emotion. For that, we have to take one more step. We have to evolve our simple person drawing one more level from what we did before. And that's going to help us express more emotion. Okay, so as you remember, the way all of us knew how to draw a body was the stick figure. And then we upgraded that by creating a figure with a little bit more depth by using just a cone, or excuse me, a cylinder and a sphere. We added some arms to that. And now we're going to go one more level. Let's do that together. All right, so as always, if you have a pencil handy, pen handy, and a sheet of paper or a notebook, you can draw along. Let's see how we can upgrade this person. One more level. Okay. Good news is, pretty basic concept. All right. I'm gonna draw this. I'm gonna draw this in blue. This will help. And we're gonna start with, of course, a sphere again. Oops, my spheres are coming out a little crooked. There we go. And we're also gonna draw a cylinder, but draw this with pencils. Don't draw it with pen, because we're gonna change the cylinder. This is the main thing that's gonna get changed. Okay. Let's start here for now. So here's the new thing that we're gonna do. All right, this is level 1, level 2, and now we're getting to level 3. Here's some level 3 things. I want you to cut this cylinder in half in your mind. Also, you can indicate that cut is happening with this line. Okay, it's kind of simple enough, right? We just cut it in half. Well, why do we do that? Okay, let me tell you. I want you to also imagine that there's another sphere in this cylinder. There's one up here, and there's one down here. Okay? It's almost like a tube of candy, and there's like 2 peanuts in there, 2 chocolate covered M&Ms or something like that. The reason we want to do that is, well, 1, that's kind of actually how the body is. But 2, it allows us to do something really special. What this allows us to do, it allows us to bend right here. And that's really important, that bend in the body. Okay? So again, we have our head. And now start thinking that we have the top circle, or excuse me, the top sphere, and the bottom sphere. Kind of getting in snowman territory for you. And this thing that we were using a cylinder to kind of cover, I want you to think of it now as being maybe a little bit more flexible than a cylinder. In fact, it's almost like a bean pod. That's how my colleague likes to think about it. It's a bean pod. So if the 2 spheres inside are the beans, there's a kind of covering that goes over top of it. And it's still, like, if you looked at that shape, it's still very much so based on a cylinder, right? You can still see the cylinder in here, okay? But it's a little bit more organic, all right? Now, if you had a bean pod and the outside covering of the pod was bendable, well, that could do a couple different things, right? So if the top one was over here, this covering would still do the same thing. It would still go over it. It'd make like a crease in here, and then it'd be straight over here, right? So that's like it's tilting this way. And of course, it could tilt the other way as well. Okay, so the crease is here now. So you have your bean covering, and then this side is kind of long. All right, so I want you to think about that cylinder is now a kind of bean pod, and it can bend, it can move. All right. Okay, bear with me. Bear with me. All right, here we go. What what does that do for us? How does that even help us? Why would we want to do that? Well, we want to do that because when I draw people, those two spheres represent the kind of top area of the body, meaning the chest, and that bottom sphere actually represents the the waist area, the lower torso. Okay, and why that's important is because our body also kind of is able to bend in this way, and the way in which our body is bending indicates or shows a fair amount of emotion. Like you can read a lot about a person's body language based on where that bend is. It's like one of the most important elements of how a person is feeling is like what way is their body bending. We don't often think about that, but we'll look at some examples. So the thing about that is, I want you to, we're going to go back over here to the cylinder. Let's make this green. It'll help us follow along. And remember, our arms kind of met here and down here, like on all the corners. Remember that? So the arm was here, here. Okay, it's still going to do the same thing in the bean person. They're going to kind of meet at the same places. Okay, so that part hasn't changed. We'll talk about the arms and the legs in a second, but just know that they're gonna connect to the body in the same way that we did in the past. So that hasn't changed. All that's really changed is now that cylinder is more malleable and it can bend in the center point because there's two beans inside that bean pod. Okay? Let's put this into practice. All right. So we have our sphere. This is our head. Okay? And now we're saying, all right, well, there's a bean pod. And you can still use the cylinder. Nothing wrong with that. Like, you can draw it, like, really lightly. So you're like, okay, it was here. And then I knew that it was cut in half. And then I knew that there was a circle on the top, somewhere in there, and a circle on the bottom. And then you can kind of go over that and say, okay, well, here's the important parts. That one, and that one. And then the covering that goes over top of it. All right? So that we wouldn't really see the inside, but we would know that there are indeed some beans in that pod, and the arms still connect as they've always connected. Okay? So now what looked like this, kind of classic person as we drew it, now it just looks a little bit like this. Okay? So it's not that big of a shift. You can even draw a little neck if you'd like. Not that big of a shift. Okay? All right. So once we have that, let's move this over here. I'm kind of running out of space. And I'll erase some of this. Once we have this kind of premise worked out, there's a couple things that we can do. Check this out. So remember when I said if somebody was happy, they tend to be kind of looking up. Like that center line is higher than the middle point. It goes a little higher. The body also does a similar thing, where the top circle, the top beam, the chest beam, I guess you could call it, kind of goes out. So this is the head, okay, head, and this is the chest, okay. The chest kind of goes out this way, and the lower pod, the waist beam there, kind of goes back this way. So you get this shape. Okay, are you seeing that shape in there? It's right here. Okay, head is over here, chest is over here, waist is down here. Okay, goes in like an arc. Why that's important is you're still gonna attach your legs. This person's kind of how to say, like at an angle. So imagine this is the kind of front of them. So not this red line. Let's get rid of that. That could be distracting. This is like the front of them. They're kind of facing this way a little bit. Let's get rid of this. They're kind of facing this way a little bit. We'll just do that for now. So I know that their arms are going to be one's here, one's in the back, right? So it's like this. The legs do the same thing. So this one's down here. This one's kind of in the back a little bit. And the feet would face this way. And we see that it kind of has this quality where their chest is kind of facing almost outward or even up a little bit. And when somebody is happy or proud, this is the shape they tend to take. And you can really exaggerate that. Like you can really exaggerate that. For instance, like if I did my kind of arc like really extreme, and I did my head over here, they're like really looking up, and I did my kind of chest is way out here, and my waist is kind of way pushed back. So now this like center line is like it's really intense. And I add my arm. Say there, he has his arms up, or she has her arms up. Make her female. And the legs are kind of back here. This person looks really proud all of a sudden, right? And if we take our black line and just kind of go over the things that matters, something like this. Okay, here's the crease. Remember the crease I was talking about? Those bean pods are always creasing. It's over here like that. All right. What you get now is somebody that just looks really proud. Like they've, done an Olympic race and they've won. They're really proud. Their chest is out, really excited. It's a really simple way of expressing a lot with that body just being in that position. The same thing happens if we go the other way. Let me show you. So if our head is actually, so if that arc is this way, then the opposite is this way, right? Again, this is assuming that the character is facing that way, so just remember which way the character is facing. A similar thing happens. So our head is over here. Let's put our head over here. Because of this curve, the top bean pod is like up here. It's like way up here. Okay. And then the waist is actually protruding in front. So it looks like that. Okay. Again, it's just the same. The head, chest, waist. But instead of following this curve, it's now following this curve right here. Okay. But we know that the legs and the arms kind of still fall in the same place. So the legs are down here, feet are out here, because again, they're facing this way. and the arms would kind of be around the same spot. Because now again, especially if you're thinking about the cylinder, kind of like it's like a bent soda can or something like that almost. We're actually starting to look at the top of this sphere. So the arms would kind of come meet somewhere here and on the other side over here. And if you had them kind of drooping down like that, you see that we have a really bummed out person. Let me clean this up with some black lines and it will be way more obvious. Okay. You can see that this person is really slouched down. They're looking down, right? They're like really bummed out. And that is just the opposite of this one. And so those are really easy ways of shaping the body to express a lot of emotions by just adding one part of the kind of body that we were drawing before with the cylinders. Just thinking of the cylinder in two parts, a top part, a bottom part, and allowing those things to move and bend, okay? And that will always happen. So remember that when the top bean, the chest bean, is kind of more out and the waist bean is further back, they tend to be happier, excited, proud. And when it's the opposite, sad, angry, things like that. And we can actually manipulate some of those based on what their arms and legs are doing. So let's do one more thing before we finish, which is to think about what the arms and legs can do. Okay? So what I'll do here, I don't want to get rid of all this. I think it's still useful. I'm going to make it smaller. Okay? So it'll be for reference. Might be a little hard for you to see on video, but we can return to it if we need to use it as an example. And I will draw over here. Yeah, this will work. Okay. So again, we'll draw our basic person, which is our head is here. Okay. Top part is here. Kind of looks like a snowman, right? Bottom part is here. Again, this is like the bean pod, right? And I draw the inner lines because it helps me remember what's in front of what. But you can actually erase it. And you should erase it when you're kind of finished with the drawing and you're just trying to clean it up, right? So here's one arm. We'll do one arm here. We'll do it like this and like this. And here's the legs facing out. Okay, so there's our basic person. Now I've represented arms and legs as being kind of just lines, and I was like, didn't really give much instruction as to what that is. But another thing that you can do when thinking about an arm is, let's say this person has their arms in the air and their legs are kind of spread out. This person's taking up a lot of space. And people tend to take up a lot of space when they're feeling good. They want to be big. They're okay with receiving attention because they're really feeling good about themselves. So when you see arms kind of shot out like that and legs shot out, you know that this person is, okay with getting attention. They want attention right now. They're feeling away. It might not just be because they're proud. It might be because they're angry or upset. But they're receiving attention, and making yourself big is kind of our way of indicating that. The opposite, of course, is when the arms kind of go in on themselves. Maybe this person's kind of shy. They're trying to make themselves small. They don't want to be noticed, right? Even their legs kind of like get close together. They kind of go in together. Maybe their feet kind of go in together. Now this person is trying to make themselves small, right? And it even looks better when we draw that kind of person who's a little bit bummed out, because this arc right here, their legs kind of come in together and their arms are here like this. They're trying to make themselves, they're shy, right? This looks like a shy person right here, right? Now, the other thing that's important to know about the arms and the legs is they can bend. And I usually, for simplicity's sake, and when I'm doodling especially, just represent those as kind of arms that can go this way or this way. But just know that when you think about an arm, there is the kind of uh, like where I don't know, the top part of the arm, where the shoulder and the bicep are, and then you have an elbow, and then you have the forearm, and then you have a wrist, and then you have a hand, right? That's useful for some people too. And when I started drawing, I always drew it like this because it just helped me remember how the arm bended, and that was really useful. So if this is helpful for you, do that. I think the the more you get used to it, the more able you'll just be to kind of draw it as a curve and know that it's still following what an arm would do, right? But still, like an arm couldn't go well. It could go this way, but that means the shoulder's up here and things like that. And you can just represent that. But if it was going this way, that feels a little bit more natural, right? And that's because the elbow's kind of out here, the shoulder's here, and so on. You can even, this is maybe too advanced, but you can even think about the arms as a series of spheres and cylinders. That's actually probably the most correct way to think about arms. See how that works? Like if you put all that together, you could attach it here. So it's like, here's the shoulder, that's the first sphere. And then you have a cylinder, which is the bicep. And then this kind of sphere here represents the elbow. And the forearm, another cylinder attaches to that. And then another sphere attaches to that. And then the hand would attach to that. All right, so that's a way more complex arm, but just the most important part is that you have the first part, second part, and they're connected with a joint. Okay, these are the joints: shoulder, elbow, wrist. Can be useful. Well, guess what? The legs do the exact same thing. Okay, so the legs meet and they kind of go into the hip socket, and you have the kind of, I guess it'd be your femur, right? Maybe the femur is the bottom part. Oh boy. I don't know my anatomy very well, but the top part of the leg, okay? The knee, right? And then the bottom part of the leg, the shin. Yeah, I think femur and shin. Am I right? I might be right. I don't know. And then, of course, that connects um, to the foot. And same thing as the arms. We can think of those as cylinders and spheres. And again, this is more complex. You probably won't be doing this, but you could if it's useful. Okay? And that's really basic construction of how a person is. And of course, the knee does not bend outward, right? That's like a dog's leg or something. It always bends back. So the knee is kind of a joint that always bends back. Okay. And that's important. Like if you wanted to draw a dancing person, let's draw a little dancing person. You could do that very easily by drawing your top sphere for the head. They're looking up. They're having a good time. They're laughing. Their hair's kind of wild. And then you had the chest sphere and the waist sphere down here. Remember, those are our beans, right? And they're kind of have one arm up in the air. That's the bend, right? Remember the shoulders here. The other one's kind of going down here because they're dancing, right? They could be doing like real funky things with their legs, right? So one's like over here, and then one could be like over here. And we just drew a really simple dancing person that is mostly communicated by the joints of the arms and the legs and what they're doing. They're not like in unison, so they're not trying to keep balance. You know that they're in motion, and that can just be a really cool thing. So that is some really it kind of opens up the can for way more fun stuff. If you were to learn anatomy, you'd probably start at a place like this, just drawing these kind of little simple bean persons. Um, and if you want to draw really sophisticated human beings, that's kind of how you would go about it. And of course, you would like keep adding more anatomy and things like that to it. But for the sake of just doodling, it also functions as a way to just draw simple things. And one of my favorites, of course, is just drawing some simple emotions just based on that kind of bean pod uh, like dynamic of the body.